Hi guys, very good morning to you. Welcome to the video number 243, and in this video I'm actually going to talk about the VBA. This is the video regarding the introduction. We would like to see a couple of very important things which, as a programmer, if you're learning the VBA and or if you're planning to learn the VBA, then please go ahead and watch this video. And this channel actually, the channel which I am running, this channel actually is dedicated to all those people who are interested in learning the Excel, advanced Excel, basic Excel, Excel intermediate level, or Excel VBA, MS Access, Access VBA, everything we have gotten for you, right? So this is the video number 243, and I'm going to start it from the very scratch. If you are very much expert in the VBA, then there is no point of watching this video. You can definitely exit from the video, right? So in this video we're going to talk about the VBA window editor, where exactly you write the code, and I'm going to tell you all the shortcut keys and how I'm going to make you comfortable with this window editor. And then I'm going to tell you about the couple of the options which you can use from the main menu, which is called the view, right, in the VBA window. And then we are going to talk about the modules, how to insert the modules, how to delete the modules, what exactly they are, and of course we are going to learn the local windows, one of the very important tool in the VBA which every programmer uses a lot when actually they debug their codes when they actually check their codes that whether the code is behaving correct or not, right? So in this video guys, we are going to start out with this. This is a very basic Excel. I hope that your basic to learn this, actually the programming, to if you're watching this video, then I must tell you that the only thing which you need to understand is, the only thing which you should be the thing in which you should be eligible is that you should be knowing the basic Excel very well. You should be knowing that what are the sheet cells, and how to write the cells there, how to copy and paste the things in a Excel, right? So guys, now have a look. This is, I'm using 2016, but it is irrespective of any version you use. The first thing, to go to the VBA editor, we actually need to go to the file and we need to click on the options. Okay, once you click on the options, I'm using this 2016, but it is same in 2013 and 2010, right? In 2007 this option comes somewhere here, and you can just Google it, that where is the developer tab in the 2007 Excel, and you can simply see the steps there and you can follow that. So in other versions after 2007, you need to click on the customize ribbon and you need to click here on the developer tab. Okay, so this developer tab has to be on always. So once you click on the OK, you see that this developer tab is coming now. Okay, it is already activated. Now through this I can go to the Visual Basic environment. I have also actually talked about these things in the couple of more videos. You can go to the playlist. These are the playlists which I have created. You can see different categories here, and one of the category here is that if you are a beginner, just click on this. We have 4 videos exactly, part 1, part 2, and then this is the part 4, and this video which I'm talking about, this is going to be the another part. So you can also watch this the VBA basic interview test. So if you're through with this part 1 and part 2 and part 4, then you can definitely go ahead and watch this video 235, right? It tells you actually what questions are being put up in, generally they are put up in the Excel interviews, Excel VBA interviews, from the very basic level, right? It is not the advanced level questions. It's a very basic interview question, right? So you can go ahead and definitely watch it. So once you have the developer tab on, you can click on the Visual Basic, and this is exactly the screen looks like if you're using it the first time. If your screen looks a little different, maybe you have some whiteboards and all the other things, then I'm just going to actually tell you that how to on that. But if you have never actually used the VBA, then this is how the screen looks. Now guys, this is called the Visual Basic, Microsoft Visual Basic for application, and the sheet name, the workbook name, I beg your pardon, which is intro.xlsm. This tells you about the file name. Now what you need to do is, because if you see this kind of a black window, then you need to, first of all, the very first thing which you need to on is go to the view option and click here on your project explorer, which is called the Control R. You can also press the Control R, provided you should click on this window, not on this window. If you're going to use the Control R, if you're going to click here Control R, nothing will happen, right? Because it is a Excel, but this is the VBA environment. This is the VBA window for this intro.xlsm. So you need to understand you have two environments now. One is called the Excel environment and the second is called the VBA environment, right? VBA environment, to work on the shortcut keys of the VBA, you need to actually click on this environment, or you can simply right click and just click on the view and you can click on the Control R, right? So I'm on this actually window. I have selected this window and I'm going to press Control R, and you see that this window actually pops up. Now this is called the Project Explorer, right? In this Project Explorer, VBA project is a name which you cannot delete it. It is by default gets associated with every file, and you have the file name which is called the intro.xlsm. XLSM because this is my macro file. If it is a normal file XLSX, then you know once you're going to make the code on the file and going to save it, it will ask you that whether you want to change the extension or not, and you will have to change it if you want your macros to run. So that is why this .xlsm means that it's a macro enabled file. If you see XLSX, then please understand that is not actually the macro enabled file. That is a simple Excel file. Now you have the sheets here. As you can see, I have all the sheet names here, sheet 9, final, and sheet 7. So all the 3 sheets are here with this workbook. This work will always this always comes with this this window, so you really don't have to worry about it. Just let it be there. We are not going to touch any of these things today in this video. Now the next thing which you need to understand is that what exactly it is meant for. Basically you write the codes here. Now where you write the codes, now you can write the codes in a number of places. You can write the codes in this sheet 2, sheet 3, sheet 4, this workbook, but we are not going to touch that. I'm simply going to click on the insert and I'm going to click on the module. The moment you click on the module, this is how your tree would look like. It has branches, right? So you can click here and you can also collapse it or expand it, so this is how you can work on the things. So I can just hide them, just click here because we don't need this right now. Your focus has to be, because you're a beginner, that every time 99% of the codes are actually we write on the modules, right? Now this is the module. The moment I double click it, this window would automatically come. As you can see, you can also maximize the window and you can double click on that and this is going to be resized. Not only this, you can also further go ahead and shrink this if you want to see that, let's say if you want to have a more view on the Excel side, then you can shrink it in whatever direction you want. So this is going to be shrinked like this. Okay, so it's all up to you. Some people also prefer to keep it like on the maximized mode, so you can write the code there, but that's all up to you. I generally prefer to keep it this much of the size, so that when I run this code I can also see that the steps which I'm actually running, what kind of actions they are taking, and you can see in the this Excel, right? So you can definitely go ahead and guys watch this macro editor part and you will understand exactly what I'm saying. When you run the code, then how the things happens in the Excel, you want to see it. Now this is exactly where we are going to write the code. Now let me go ahead and write my first code, which is going to be a very simple message box which I want to display here. Now there are some rules which you need to follow when you write the macro. Okay, so we are going to discuss about the under this module part, we are going to discuss about that, how to basically give it a name to the macro. So I'm going to write here how to give your macro a name. Okay, so far what we have done, we have covered the VBA editor window. Okay, VBA editor window. You need to how you can do it, you just need to go to the developer tab. When you go to the developer tab, then you just click on the Visual Basic, and that window would come. If you click this window would come, and if this window actually looks like completely blank, then you need to go to the view and you need to hit on the Project Explorer. So what you can do is, if you see your if you see your VBA screen totally blank, then you need to go to the view, and in the view you need to click on the Project Explorer. Okay, so once you click on the Project Explorer, this window would come, which you see here. I can also close it, for example, like this. And if you want it back, you can click back on the view and you can click on the Project Explorer, or you can simply press Ctrl R. You see this window would come back. This is very important window because this helps us in creating the modules, and this also helps us in renaming the modules, and this also helps us actually in knowing that on which module we are working. So for the time being, maybe you can close it, but this is really required, right? So now this is the first thing, and in the module, now what we have done is how to, before we actually give a macro name, we inserted the module. So how to insert the module, what we did is we click on the view. Let me take you back to this, not actually view, but we click on the insert and we click on the module, right? So you go to the insert option and then you click on the module. Okay, now this is going to do what? This is going to insert the module. Okay, so in this way you have a module. Now module is a place where actually you can write the code. Now before you write the code, the first thing you need to understand is that what exactly the when you write the code, how exactly the syntax goes. So every syntax starts with the sub word. This is called, also some people call it procedure, some people call it macro, many people call it macro, or you can also call it subroutine, right? But it starts with the sub keyword, which is a VBA word, and then you go ahead and give the name of your macro. So I'm going to give this macro a name. Let me call it my first macro, let's say. So this is how you can give it name, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and just press enter, and end sub is automatically going to be created. That means now this macro is going to be known as my first macro, right? You can quickly also see this. For example, if you click on this developer tab, and here if you click on the macro, here you will start finding that macro. Though we haven't recorded any coding there yet, we haven't written any coding there, but the macro, once you have written the name sub, it is going to come here, right? For example, if I again go ahead and create one more macro, let's say I'm going to create here, let's say another macro, which is my second macro. Let's say I'm going to give this some name called second macro, and the moment I press enter, now again you come back to the Excel and you click on the macro, you see that this is also going to be shown here. Going to be shown here, and you can run it from here, you can edit it from here, you can also delete it from here. This is all called the macro, basically the editor window. I have talked about this in the part 1 video. Okay, now what is the good thing, important thing I would say you need to understand when you name it. Now you see that I have used the underscore here. Now there is no compulsion you need to use the underscore, right? You can simply also write this like my first macro, but sometime when your name is new, it's a long name, then it's always good, advisable to give it an underscore so that it is going to be readable, right? Now the next thing which you can do is you cannot start this macro with the name called this any number, because if you now click anywhere outside, you will get this error which is called the expected identifier. So you cannot begin your macro with any number. That you always need to understand. Similarly, you can't really write any special character, right, except for the underscore. So special character, if you try to write it, insert it here, then you see that you will get the error, right? Maybe you try to use @ you see, you will get the error. So you can't do that, right? So underscore is allowed, and number is also allowed, but number you can write it after the macro, after the text actually, basically. So you can write here M2. This is fine, this is not going to create any problem, right? But you can't start with the number directly. For example, as I shown, that you can't write like this. This is going to give you the error, right? Similarly, one more thing you can do, that you cannot use this any VBA keywords. For example, in this you cannot write here sub, right? Because sub is a VBA word. You see, it is not going to accept it. Neither you can write this dim word. I hope if you don't know about the dim word, dim actually we use it to define the variables in the VBA. So the point is that you cannot declare any, you cannot use here any VBA word, right? So I'm just going to keep this a different name, that this is my first macro. Let's say I'm going to write it like this, right? So here you're going to write your macro, and then the macro is going to be visible here, right? So you can run the macro from here also. You can run the macro from this editor as well, which I'm going to tell you. Now these are the basically the basic rules which you need to follow, right? Now again, when you created this module 1, similarly if you click on this insert and you click here, another module can be created. So you can also write the another macro here. However, there is no limit to this. You can create as many macros within the same module also, right? But people generally write it in the different modules because they want to actually keep it simple and clean, so that if you have so many macros, 15-20 macros, searching them in one module can be a very cumbersome task. So they prefer to write the modules here. And one more thing, just like you have given a good name to this my first macro, so that when you're going to come back and you can see that what exactly it is going to do. For example, this macro, my first macro, is the first macro, but you can also change it. For example, you can write it if it is an email macro, if your macro does the email, then you can also write that you can write here that sending email. Okay, so this is what exactly when you're going to come back to this module 1, you can see here, and you can, you know, pretty well you can have the idea that this macro is going to actually talk about the emails part, right? So anyways, let me just undo this. So don't try to write these names like sub A, sub B, sub C, because you know these names does not have any meaning, though this is accepted in the VBA. But you see, if you click on the macro, you will not understand what exactly this macro stands for. So you will be confused. You will have to go into this macro, right? And then you will have to see that what exactly it is doing, right? So rather than that, if you write here anything, let's say if it is doing the send email, then what will happen the next time when you're going to have 10-20 macros, when you click on this macro, out of those 10-20 macro, if you will give a good naming convention to the macro, you know, you would understand what exactly it is going to do, so whether to run it or not, right? So this helps a lot in understanding the macro also, right? Okay, so right now I'm just going to keep it my first macro. We are just going to, or maybe you can write it introduction. I think that really looks very nice. Introduction to VBA, let's say. That's it, right? So guys, similarly on the same concept, if you want to delete the module, so now this module 2 is created, I want to delete it, let's say. So you can just simply right click on it and you can remove the module. Just click on this. Do you want to export the module 2? I don't want to export it. If you click on the yes, then this module is going to be saved on your desktop or whatever path you're going to give, and you can later on use it, right? You can import it as well, but I'm not going to do that. I just click on the no, and you see that this module is deleted. Now how about actually in this view option, there is a one more option which is called the properties window. So if you click on the properties window, what will happen, this window would come like this, right? Now it may come in a different way in your screen, right? For example, generally it comes actually before the module, so it can be fixed here as well. I can just drag it, right? So it's all up to you how you actually want to have a look on this, right? So you can fix it this module 1 here as well. That's fine. It's completely fine. The only thing which you need to understand why we use it, especially in the modules. Now module 1 does not actually make any sense to me, because if tomorrow I have 10 modules, then 10 modules means, and then now how would I understand that this module actually talks about what? So I can, you know, write it here. I can give it a good name. For example, I can write here that discussion on introduction, for example, right? So now when you're going to give this kind of name, just click outside, you see that this is going to be changed. Now once this is changed, you really do not need this property window again, right? However, if you want it back, you can just go ahead and click on the property window, provided your button should be here, right? Because if you have a more modules, for example, I insert one more module right now. Now my selection is on the module 1. So if you go to the view and click on the property windows, this window actually talks about this module 1, not the discussion introduction, right? So if you want that thing, you need to select this and then you go to the view and property window, or you can also press F4. So that particular window would come up. Properties would be showing up for that selected module, right? For example, right now I've selected this, I press F4, there we go. You see that, right? Now I select this and I'm going to press F4. You see that this is for the module 1, right? So you can also rename it. For example, I just write it like test. Click outside and there we go. So now you have the test and you have the discussion introduction, right? So let's just quickly go ahead and remove this. Okay, so we are back on our introduction VBA. So this is where exactly you write the macro, and these are the naming conventions which you follow when you give the name to your macro, and at the same time when you give this naming convention, you know, to your modules. You need to take care of everything. For example, I selected this, I press F4, and what if I write here any special character? I try to write this % sign and I click outside. You see that not a legal object name. So the same rules apply here, right? If you're going to actually select this, let's say I'm gonna write here any number and I click outside, you see not a legal name. So the same rules applies to the module also. So you don't have to remember the separate rules, right? What rules we follow here, the same rules we follow here. Okay, so this is all about your module, and this is about your basically the insert. From here you can insert the modules. There are another options as well, but we are not going to discuss that. This is a very basic video on the VBA, right? So you ensure that you click the insert and module, click on the module, and there you can record the macro, and this is used for your this project explorer and also for the property windows to rename your modules actually. Okay, so the first thing which I'm going to do today is I'm going to simply display a message box, and this is how you write the message box. Message box is a VBA function. As you can see here, you have a lot of things, prompt and then buttons and then title, help file. So we don't need anything. I'm just going to display here my first macro, which is called the hello, right? Or maybe you can write hello, let's say hello my VBA. Okay, this is going to be your the first macro. Now how to run this macro, this is what exactly we're going to discuss. Okay, now this macro can be run in 3 ways. There can be there can be 4th way as well, but majorly you run it in 3 ways. One is from the this Excel window. You can just go ahead and click on the macro and select this macro and just hit on the run, and you see that this pop-up would come, which is called the hello my VBA, right? This is the very the basic idea, how you can actually do that. And the another thing is you can go to the insert and you can create any shape here. Let me create the button here. Just draw this button and right click on that and just click on the assign macro and hit on this intro VBA. Click back, and now instead of going to this developer tab, you can also click here and the macro will run because you have assigned that macro, right? So you can also edit the text here. So you can say that you can write whatever you want, right? You can write run, or you can write the macro name as well, right? So whenever user will click here, that macro is going to fire. This is the second method, and both the methods are operated from the front end of the Excel. User really doesn't have to go in the Visual Basic, right? However, as a developer, before you send out this code, before you share this code with your team, you would like to check whether the code is working, right? So maybe you would like to check the code from this window itself. So to do that, what you need to do is you need to go to the view, and in this you have this option called the toolbar. Okay, so in the toolbar option you have the debug, edit and standard. So let me first click on the standard. The moment you click on the standard, you see that this bar is inserted, which was not here, right? So this is the bar. Now you see that standard, it is check marked, right? So if you're seeing this bar in your toolbar in your VBA, then that means your view, under your view, this is already checked. Okay, so now what exactly it is going to help us? It can give us this option called run, and it can give us the option called the reset. There are a lot of other options as well, but majorly we use it only for run or for the reset. Reset means that when you want to cancel the code while it is running, let's say. Okay, now if I click on this run, see what will happen. You can see that it says run and then use the form F5. So F5 is another shortcut key which you can use, right? So I click here and the macro is going to run, right? Or I can also press F5 and the macro is going to run. So this is the another method. But if you click outside the macro, outside this end sub, and now you try to hit on this, you see that this is running, right? And if I now going to press F5, it is again going to run. Okay, now one thing more I want to tell you. Let's say if you want to press, now there is another shortcut key which is called the F8. F8 is a shortcut key which is used to run the macro step by step. Now if I just quickly run this macro, you see it's not, now this is what exactly I was talking about. This macro is not going to run. It is going to ask you, it is going to populate this pop-up, this box where you will have all the macros coming. Right now we just have one macro, and then from there you need to run it. But people generally hate it because this pop-up should not come. They want that the macro should directly run, but this is not running because of the reason that now look at this. I can click here and this is going to give me this problem. So please ensure that whenever you run basically your macro, then it should be on it should be within the sub and the edge sub, or maybe it can be on the end sub line also, and you can run it. It will always work directly. It will not give you any problem, right? Now if you run this macro being on the top of the sub, before the sub, then this pop-up would come. However, you can run it from there also, that is not the problem, but it's always good to put your cursor here because then you will not get that pop-up, right? So if I now hit on this run, you see that this pop-up would come. This pop-up is coming because your selection is outside the end sub, or maybe if your selection is before the sub, let's say here, then this macro is not going to actually able to recognize which macro it should run, which VBA code it should run. So that's why it gives you this kind of a pop-up. So if your cursor is on this line, or maybe on this line, or here, this is going to run quickly. Look at this. This is going to run. If you put your cursor here, it is going to run, right? So this is how you need, these are the basic things which you need to take care of. Okay, all right. Now what is the next thing I want to tell you guys? The next thing is that now if you go to the view, okay, if you go to the view, then we have already selected this standard bar. So standard bar is the one thing, and there is another bar which is called, you can also write here the debug. Click on the debug, and this is the second line which is inserted, and you can see here, right? They can be resized. You can also just put your this hover your this take your mouse to the 16 side, and you can now drag it, you know, the way we drag like in the Excel, you know, using your this keypad, or if you're using the mouse, you need to just keep your click pressed, right? So you can drag it, you can resize it, you can, you know, put it wherever you want, right? So I generally prefer it keeping on the next line, which is this. Now what exactly we can do it from here? So you can run the macro step by step as well. Step into, which is called the shortcut. The shortcut key is called the F8. So if I click here, you see that this small icon, you know, arrow sign would come, and this means that this is going to execute it. The moment you click again, you see that this is going to run step by step. So this, the macro runs, but it is going to stop here on the end sub, right? Again you press step into and the macro is finished. Let me press F8 again. You see that? So this is called the step-by-step execution, and this is very useful when you develop the big codes and when you want to check whether the codes are correct or not, right? So people then use the F8 because they want to see that what exactly is happening, right? So it is entirely different from the F5, from the run mode, because in the run mode it is not going to take any time. It just runs and finishes, you can see here. But using the F8 or using this command step into, which we have got it activated from this you know, debug bar, it helps you a lot. So you can press F8 and it goes step by step. Right now this is just a message box, so I can do one thing. Maybe I can write here, let's say I can declare here some variables. So this is how I will declare the variable dimension, dim I as integer, right? So now just don't pay any attention to the dim I as integer, what I'm writing. If you're new to the VBA, just I want to tell you that how exactly the things are going to work. Now I have declared here two variables, and I'm going to say that I equals to 8 and j equals to, let's say, I plus 1. Okay, now in the message box, instead of this hello my VBA, I can do one thing. I can delete this and I can write here that the answer which I'm looking forward is I plus j. Okay, now you're not going to write anything within the quotes because these are the variables. So variables means that something which is used to hold the values in your VBA. It can be anything as long as it is not a VBA keyword. Okay, so you can use any of the name. I have written here I and J. You can write M, N, O, any alphabet. You can also write your name. That's perfectly fine, right? I have talked about this variables in my another video where I have discussed about the scope of the variables. You can go ahead and watch that video, right? But right now the motive is I want to tell you that there is one more option which we want to check. For example, when you run this, then you know you get to see these values. Now I 8 and j is 8 plus 1, so the answer should be 10, right? But there's another beautiful way of checking this. When you press the F8 and you want to see all these variables, you know, coming on the screen and telling you that how exactly the, you know, when you execute the steps, then how exactly they are getting the values to check whether the code is behaving correct or not. You can simply go ahead and click on the view and you can click on this local window, right? Once you click on the local window, you see that just like your property window, this would also come here, and you can resize it, you can double click it, you can also move it, you can put it anywhere, you can adjust it with your VBA code, for example, right? So now what is this local window? Now the moment you run F8, which means that you have started the macro, automatically all the variables are going to be shown up here. And now you see that you have because you created only 2 variables. If you would have created 10 variables, 10 variables would have come here, right? So I can show you that. Let me quickly declare one more. Let's say I'll declare here a as integer. Integer means that it can hold any number within some specific range, and the range is I think 32,000 something, but we are not interested in knowing the range. All I want to tell you that how actually you can make a use of the local window. Okay, now you have created these variables. The moment you run F8, you see that by default you would end up having all these variables coming here in this window. So when you run this, the moment you run this, now this line is going to be executed. You see that this 0 is changed to 8. So this is actually called the local window. This is very useful because when you're going to make this code and you want to ensure before you send it out to team that this actually works perfect, obviously using the F8 command, you know, you can see that you can do the post-mortem of your code. You can see that whether it is actually working great or not. Now you see that the value in the j is 2, which means that it is saying that the value in the j is now 2. Is it correct? Yes, it is correct because we have written here 1 plus 1. But I wanted to actually, let's say I just forgot to write here, you know, it's instead of the I, it is actually written as 1. You cannot see the difference because of this caps, you know, uppercase. So now what I can do, I can reset the code. Now this is the same window, guys, which you want to actually reset. which you want to, when you want to cancel the code, if you remember, I actually went to the toolbars and I clicked on this standard toolbar. So this is also used to reset the code. Now let's say I want to rerun the code by doing the correction. So I just click here and you see that everything gone. This window is clear and that yellow icon is also gone, right? So we can do one thing. I can change the case of this I. So let me make it in the small letters. This would look nice. So let me declare it I, and basically I need to declare here small I. So I'm going to declare here I, and everything will be changed. Now it makes a lot of sense, right? So now it I plus 1, it is not 1 plus 1. So let's hit out on the F8 key. Now you can see that I've started this, and now I changes from 0 to 8, and now J is going to be 8 plus 9, and as expected we got the J9. So J is also looking good. However, we are not using A and B, but I just wanted to tell you that just in case if you want to use it, you can use it, right? So the message box would give us the 17 value. So this is your actually the local window which you use in the VBA editor command. Okay, so what we have covered the project explorer, we have covered the property windows, and then in the toolbars we have covered the debug window, standard window actually helps us in running the macro and resetting the macro. Debug helps us in running the macro on the step-by-step mode, right? And similarly, project explorer is your tree which you are able to see here. This is your project explorer. You can close it. I can press again Ctrl R and it is going to be activated again, right? And then we actually went to the this insert as in the view, and we clicked on the local window. This local window actually helps us in identifying that what exactly the variables we are using in the VBA, okay, and how the values there are changing. This is how this basically the VBA is all about. So basically these are the tools which you must actually be knowing in order to really perform well, right? If you don't have any idea about these things, then this can be a problem for you, right? So how to insert the modules, how to rename the modules, how to insert the project explorer, and how to collapse and expand this, right? And how to what exactly the very important part is how to give it a good name, the proper name, appropriate name, and how to give your module a name. We have learned everything, and how to make the use of these toolbars which are available for you, especially these debug and the standard toolbars. You can make a use of it, okay? And there's one more toolbar which you can use, which is called the edit toolbar. You see that this edit, click here. Now edit, actually this is the toolbar. You can move it anywhere. For example, you can put it anywhere. Now this is a very useful option. Now what happens sometimes in the VBA, you want to write some comments, or maybe you want to write some syntax, but for the time being you don't want to execute it, but you just want it to be there because anytime in the future you may like to use it. For example, I talk about this message box I plus J, but I don't want to run this. So what you can do is you can just put your cursor on this and you can use this option. You see that comment block, right? You just click here and see that this apostrophe is inserted and the color of the line is changed. Now this means that when you run this macro, let me press F8, or you can also use this debug toolbar, right? So when you run this, you see that this line is not going to be executed. So for my beginners, I want to tell you, whenever you insert any comment in the beginning of the line, VBA will neglect that. It is going to act as a comment only, right? Now you must be wondering that why to use this option then? Why to use this? Why can't I directly put the apostrophe here? For example, if this is your code, you can also use it like this simple. You can press this single quote, right? And that is perfect. You can do it, right? That there is no problem in that. But this is very useful when you want to actually comment the multiple lines. For example, I want to write here a couple of things. For example, I write here message box, let's say I, and then I write message box J, and then I write message box I minus J, and then I write message box, let's say I minus J, and then plus I. There are a lot of things, right? Now what if you want to comment all these lines in one simple step? Now if you do it manually, then you have to go to the every line and you have to write like this, which is very irritating sometimes, right? I'm talking about only 4-5 lines here, but you can have maybe 10 lines, 15 lines, right? And so you surely would need to would like to use a shortcut key. So there is a shortcut key for that. You just need to select all these lines and you just go to the comment block and you click on this basically this window which is called the comment block. You hit on that and you see that comment is inserted to every line, right? And not only this, if you just realize that no, these lines are not supposed to be comment, right, we need to uncomment them, then no problem, no need to do the manual work again. Just select all those lines, right, and just hit back on this uncomment block just next to this comment block, right? And this all you see in the edit window, right? So you click back and you see that your code is ready now. So this is your actually the introduction to your VBA with couple of the very important tools where you write the program and how you change the properties. So guys, I hope you like this video, and if you have any comments to share, please do that, and we will be back with some another exciting stuff very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and do subscribe to the channel.